Hi guys, good afternoon. This is a very specific video which deals with a problem I've been having with the PIC16F684. And I suppose I'll have to explain my code first so that you can hopefully understand the problem I was having. I fixed it. But here goes. So I'm trying to program my PIC16F684 to control a parallel in serial out shift register. Hopefully in a short while I'll have a video where I've succeeded at doing that. But no matter, I'm working on developing this code, and what I have basically is something simple. And yes, this is assembly language. I've got two output pins and two input pins. Now, to manipulate the 74HC165, I only really need to control 3 pins on this particular shift register. And I won't explain that further. I did make a video on this chip if you look for it on my channel, and that actually gets covered. But anyway, the point is that I have 2 outputs and really 1 input to control the shift register. This other input is just a push button, so it'll test whether I push a button and then it'll execute the rest of the code. But that's not actually controlling the shift register. So really, to simplify things, I have 2 outputs and 1 input. Both of these outputs are normally, I guess, actively held high, and then when they go low, they make something happen on the shift register. Here is a drawing of the shift register here. So these are the 2 pins on the shift register I am controlling. I'm sending 2 output pins from the 16F684 microcontroller in to these pins. So the 2 output pins on my 16F684, they are controlling the shift load pin and the clock pin on the 74HC165. And these 2 pins have to be held high, and they are triggered or activated when they are sent low. It's not relevant to this video, but as extra information, the input pin on my chip will be testing the serial output of the shift register. So anyway, I'm using port C of the 16F684, and I've set pin 0 and pin 1 as outputs. And I've given them I've sort of declared variable names, and I've given them names that are applicable to the chip I'm trying to control. So port C 0 pin and port C pin 1, or A0 and RA1. Actually, excuse me, RC0 and RC1, I gave them names. So when you see them in the code, this means RC0. This will make more sense in a moment when I show you my breadboard setup. But what was happening is I was holding, or I was setting, both port C0 pin and port C1 pin high signals. And then when I went through this code, I was sending the shift load pin low delaying, and there's a delay routine down here. And then I was setting it again, sending it back high. In other words, it's almost as if you took your finger, pushed this button, and released it. Once again, I am trying to hold port C0 and port C1. I'm trying to send them. I set them both as outputs, and I'm also sending them a high signal. So when this code here iterates and it sends the port C0 pin, when it sends it low and then high again, bit clear F and then bit set F, it's actually knocking out this clock pin, which I've set as high. It's not supposed to do that. This bit clear F instruction is only supposed to manipulate one bit of information. That is what this instruction is definitively called. It's a bit clear F. But what was happening is that when this bit clear F and then the delay routine was called, and then it would set it back high, it would clear both of these pins, the shift load pin and the clock pin. It wasn't supposed to do that, and the code is not supposed to do that. Okay, I'm going to insert the video here and show you that. And this will show you the problem I was having. And then in a subsequent video, with a slight modification of my code, I'm going to show you how I fixed it. So add video here.
All right. So forgive me because I have a habit of over-explaining things. I even repeat myself. Yes, I even repeat myself. So here is my microcontroller here. It's there. And here's the PIC16F684, and I have two outputs, this blue and this green line. They're both hooked up to pins RC0 and RC1, so you can see the output state. I forget which one's which. One's the clock pin and one's the shift load pin. Those are the names, the variable names I assigned to those. And the other portion of the code that I didn't cover is that everything's activated by an input pin. Yeah, I won't explain that. But once again, the clock pin and the shift load pin are, I guess you call that active high. They're normally held high. And then the code will actually bit clear F, delay, and then bit set F, the shift load pin, so it'll go low and high. But you'll see another problem that's not supposed to happen. It'll also make this clock pin LED also do a bit clear, and it's not supposed to do that. And the code isn't written to make it do that, but it still does it. So why? This red LED, which is lit up, well, it will light up. It's also the signal from my pull down input pin on the chip. So you'll see that blink, but ignore the red LED. So I'll get rid of this light and watch what happens when I push this button. Both of those outputs are still supposed to be high. So what happened? The clock pin went low and it didn't come back on. There was nothing in the code to tell it to do that. So what happened?
Okay, I'll tell you what happened. Well, I don't know what happened, but I do know how I fixed the problem. Where am I? I turned off the comparators. And I currently have the code commented out, but now I will make it active in my program. By turning off the comparators, the problem went away. So now I'll build the program. That worked. Now I'll upload the program. Success. And now I will show you my breadboard setup. and hopefully it will be seen that the clock pin does not mysteriously blank out and do something that it wasn't programmed to, which was to clear itself and not come back on.
Alright, it's hard to see it here, but I uploaded the code with the comparators turned off. I haven't done anything yet, and you can see that the shift load pin, the orange one, is lit up, and so is the clock pin, which is a white. Maybe I can change the clock pin to a different color so it's not so bright. That's better. Okay, now when I hit the input button, it should flash the yellow shift load output pin, but it shouldn't knock out the output pin that's being assigned to the clock pin. So here's my input. Great. The clock pin, which is green now, remains on. Honestly, I don't know what the problem was. I don't know why that doesn't work, but it fixed the problem I was having.
I have some insight into what the problem could possibly be, although I can't say for sure exactly. But I guess I'll start here with the ANSL register, which is in bank 1, and I'm showing my ignorance. But put it this way, the analog select register, which can configure your GPIO pins as digital or analog, has 8 bits. How many GPIO pins are on the microcontroller? There's 12. There's 6 in port A and 6 in port C. So I have a lot of learning to do, and I still don't understand how 8 analog select bits are controlling 12 GPIOs. I don't get it. I know in some other PIC chips there are more than one analog select register. There'll be analog or ANSL H for a high byte and a low byte, but I looked in the data sheet, there's no ANSL H register. There's only an ANSL register. So I'm sure there is an explanation, and I probably am showing how ignorant I am when it comes to the analog select register, but I thought that the problem I was having might have something to do with this. And I found this note in here, which I will just read it, because I was looking at every search for ANSL in the data sheet for some kind of answer. I'll just read this. Note, the ANSL and CMCON0 registers must be initialized to configure an analog channel as a digital input. Pins configured as analog inputs will read 0. Okay, I don't completely get that at this point. I hope I understand that better later. But there's something about the ANSL register that relies upon the configuration of the CMCON0 register. Here's the ANSL register explanation in the data sheet. Maybe pause and read if you really want. And then the ANSL analog select register shows the selection of 8 bits. And there's an explanation, but I don't understand how this configures either port A or C or both. Or say you have basically you have 12 GPIOs. What if you wanted to configure port A as all digital and port C as all analog? How would you do that with the analog select register with only 8 bits controlling 12 GPIO? I don't get it, and it's probably me that doesn't understand it. There are 2 CMCON comparator control registers in bank 0 of the chip. And maybe this is the answer here. This is showing the port C register, and then the note says the ANSL and CMCON0 registers must be initialized to configure an analog channel as a digital input. Pins configured as analog inputs will read 0. I'm not sure that's applicable because the pins I was having trouble with were output pins. And here's the explanation for the CMCON0 register for the comparator configuration. And here's the CMCon comparator configuration register, CMCon0, and it's making use of these other, well, no, I guess these are bits in the CMCon0 register. But it's talking about C1, C2. I can see that's associated with the RC0 and RC1 pins, which I was trying to use. You can see there's the C2 in plus, C2 in minus, which are made use of for the comparators. So I know I'm getting close. I can smell it. I'm on the trail. But my point is that if you're having problems with your output pins on your PIC16F684, maybe it's a good idea to always turn off the comparators at the beginning of your code. And I have a popular textbook which shows sample code for this PIC16F684, and in virtually most every code it's always telling you and starting off in the code by turning off the comparators, and I couldn't figure out why that was always necessary in the code to write that, and I think I'm getting some insight now as to why. Okay, so sorry, this is not really the best constructed video, but at this point I'm not completely worked out as to what the problem is. But if you're having similar type of issues with your output pins on port C of pin 16F684, well, maybe this will help you. Maybe just try turning your comparators off with this code. Thanks for watching. And sorry, because I think I've been yelling the whole time. What's wrong with me? Thanks for watching.